Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, and locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Jason is engineering the broadcast at Genesis Communications Network in Minnesota. If you'd like to listen to the broadcast, GCNlive.com, GCNlive.com, or you can go to the Ron Gibson channel on YouTube. Ron, Gibson. He's been posting USA Prepares broadcasts for years. And with my permission and with the permission of Genesis Communications Network, we strip out the commercials. He does. Ron Gibson does. And it's commercial free except for the commercials that YouTube decides that you should enjoy. Today, live with us, as usual, staying up late in the middle of the night in Australia, Guineith Isaacs. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
You know, I'm really, really well. And Guineith, I was sitting in the studio yesterday, and I brought up a YouTube video that I would like to assign as homework. It's short, and it's by a band. Normally, I wouldn't do something like this. But it's a band known as The Seekers, Seekers, The Seekers. That's the name of the band, 2 words. And the song I'd like our class to find is called I'll Never Find Another You. That band is spectacular. There are only 4 people in it. And they are from Australia.
Australia.
And you know all about them, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, they were a sensation in 1964. I heard them. They rocketed, and this was the worldwide competition of the Battle of the Bands. The Beatles, the Dave Clark Five, the Beach Boys. They were all in this. And the Seekers made it to number 1. It was impressive. And this particular group, 3 guys, 1 gal, they're real musicians. They actually know how to play instruments, multiple instruments, and they know how to sing. And they know how to perform without swinging on trapezes, without being in thongs. They don't have tattoos. They dressed appropriately. And they rocketed to number 1 on one thing: talent. Not electrically enhanced, not computer enhanced, just raw human talent. And would you say that's correct based on your memory, Guineith?
Yeah, you know something, I don't think I emailed you about this, but I've been listening to The Seekers this week. How's that? I don't think I emailed you about that, did I? I had this song. I had the song in my head from when I was a little girl, and it was actually a favorite song of mine when I was a little girl. I didn't realize any karmic connections or anything like that, but as I've grown up and doing the past life work, I sort of figured out the karmic connections. And do you know what that song was? It was,
let me guess. It's called the Australian?
Hey, Georgia girl.
Oh, okay. That's the Seekers. They
Georgia
also,
girl by the Seekers.
right.
Yeah.
The Seekers also did another song, and I was going to play it today. I worked on the studio yesterday, feverishly trying to eliminate a ground loop. So I have this somewhere in the system, and I can't find it yet, is a hum. And I really want the audio to be perfect. But the Seekers performed a song, I believe it was in 1987, called I'm Australian. Have you heard that?
Is that the one that goes, we are one, but
yes.
we are many? Yeah, that one.
Yes,
that's
it.
My favorite song here. I guess, I am, you are, we are Australian. Yeah, that one. That was a big hit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It's still a favorite here.
I may, if I can convert it during this broadcast. Do you want me to play it if I can?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
It's quite apropos to today. And all right. So, Guineith, what do you have for us today?
Oh, my gosh. I've got so many things on my plate. I know I've been emailing you about them all week, but I think that I would like to start with an email that I just sent you about half an hour ago about masks and vaping. And a man who, he decided to do a little science experiment, and he posted his science experiment to YouTube. And I'm going to post this video to my Facebook page in the morning. That's the main reason why I have the Facebook page these days. I don't really spend that much time on Facebook now, but I post videos there and stuff that I mention on the show. So people ought to go and friend me on Facebook and follow me and all that. Anyway, just to keep up with the latest with what's happening. But anyway, this man, he put a surgical mask on, and he got one of these vaping pipes that a lot of the young people use. A lot of young people use that now instead of cigarettes. And he gets this vaping pipe, and he breathes in the vapor, and then he exhales it, and it literally, the surgical mask, it doesn't go through the middle of the mask, but it goes out every corner, out the sides of the mask, with just regular breathing. And with coughing, it's just spurted out from all the edges of the mask. And if it's doing that to smoke, you can guarantee that it's doing that with every regular breath, which means that we've all been lied to. The masks really aren't protecting any of us from anything. And they're not, if we're sick, they're not stopping other people from getting sick. And this virus is real, but there's more to this mask thing than we are being told. And various people across the last week have come out and said that it's basically a massive cult initiation ritual. And I would tend to agree, that that's the case, because I'm talking to people. I mean, I went into Bendigo today. That's the nearest town where I normally get my groceries. But I was talking to particular friends of mine today when we were in Bendigo, and I was explaining this to them, that really the masks are not stopping anything because the virus particles are so much smaller than smoke particles. Well, a smoke particle would be so massive, it would be like a gigantic rock if the smoke particle was, if the virus particle was just the size of a pea. Then, a smoke particle would be a massive rock bigger than you or me. That's the difference in size between them. So if it's not keeping a smoke particle in, it's certainly not keeping a virus particle in. And this was it. And I did an experiment today. And it was kind of a cheeky experiment. And shall I tell the class about my experiment, Vincent?
Sure.
Yeah, I went into Aldi's, and often when I go out, I dress up a little bit. I put my headscarf on, I put my big hoop earrings on, I put my rings on my fingers, and I guess I do look a little bit like a pirate when I go out. But today, I had an extra special accessory, and I wore my highwayman's mask. So I looked a little bit like a cross between a pirate and a highwayman. And the reason why I did this was to see if I could confuse the facial recognition software in the security cameras. And of course, I don't think there's much that I could tell to see that I would be. But anyway, and I'm pretty distinctive looking anyway, so I think if anyone really wanted to see who it was, that they'd probably recognize me. But I wanted to see others' reactions to me. And basically, as I was doing my grocery shopping with my highwayman's mask on, so a black mask across the eyes, but with my nose and my mouth exposed, with a scarf on my head and basically rings on my fingers, big hoop earrings and necklaces and all that sort of thing. What happened? Nobody paid any attention to me whatsoever. And I was, except for one man, took probably about a 10-second film on me, and so it's probably on the internet somewhere. If anybody's really determined, they'll probably be able to find it. But other than that, nobody blinked an eye. And I was like, what the dickens is going on here? People, I believe, have been exposed to so much weird stuff, for want of a better word, but a bit more strangeness is just going over the top of their head, you know. And I even went to an ATM machine outside a bank, dressed as a Highwayman Cross pirate, and withdrew, I would say a sum of money from the ATM and the bank. And nobody, and the person who was helping me with transport said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to get arrested. And I said, no, I won't. Just watch. And so I got out and I did my withdrawal from the ATM machine and then went back to the car, and he was a bit surprised. He was like, wow. And I said, oh, well, let's go to the supermarket, you know. And just, you know, it was quite a thing to see. Like, people are just accepting anything. And it's almost getting to the point where if you're walking around with your face uncovered, then people are going to start reacting to you. Because between a third and a half of the people in Aldi's today were wearing either cloth masks or surgical masks. And, you know, it was just that. And if you tried to explain to them that these masks are completely ineffective, you know, and even Fauci on the CDC website.
We'll address that.
Just a month or two
We'll address
ago.
that when we come back. Plus, we're living in a terrible culture. At least I think we are. Manners have disappeared. And Guineith had mentioned that she was in Aldi, A-L-D-I. It's a grocery store / supermarket. And someone decided to take a video of her. Who do these people think they are? You know, I've got to tell you, I object. I object to this tripe thinking that they can just take pictures of anything they want just because they have an Apple iPhone or a Samsung iPhone, a Samsung phone or some other kind of phone. It's offensive to me. When I was growing up, that was unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. If you had a camera, and I did, my first camera was an Argus C3, A-R-G-U-S, Model C, the number 3. And I paid $18 for it. It took me a long time to save up for that 35mm camera. I still have it. But before I put an object into a viewfinder, if that object was a person, I always ask for permission. May I take this picture? That's the way it was. That's the way it should be. But that's not the way it is. And I got to tell you, I don't know what my reaction would be if someone took my picture without my consent. It probably would be very unpleasant. I really object to it. Guineith, do you have any comments about that?
Yeah, if I had had a bad reaction to seeing myself being filmed, it probably would have looked even worse online. He was posting it anyway to his social media. But if I had blown up at him, then it would have gone sky high, and I would really have trouble dealing with that. So I thought, but you're right, it is rude to film somebody, even somebody who looks unusual, without asking first. And there was a time, and if he had said, hey, you look really interesting, can I take your photo? I probably would have said, yeah, sure, fine. And I would have said, actually, this is just a social experiment, just to see how people are reacting. Could I give your opinion on what you thought when you saw me coming up as basically a highwayman cross pirate figure doing my grocery shopping in my local Aldi's? And we could have had a conversation about that. And he would have said, oh, well, this is a bit unusual. What's your meaning behind it? I'll say, well, it's kind of a social experiment. It's kind of a protest against the whole mask thing, because the masks don't stop transmission of any disease. And that could have been an interesting conversation that we could have had. But that didn't happen. And I wish that it had happened, because he's probably going to post it online, and it's probably going to be like, oh, look at this weird lady I saw in Aldi's, And so probably if you put a weird masked lady in Aldi's on the internet, it's probably there. It's probably got like thousands of views by now. But, it's just sort of like, you are right. People have lost their respect. But there's more than that they've lost, which was the whole point of what I was trying to show. They have lost their moral value of judgment. And I mentioned this to my friend who was with me, who was helping me with transport. I said, listen, at one time it was that if you were wearing a mask, you were up to no good in some way. You were either engaged in some sort of, black magic ceremony, or you were a robber, a highwayman, a bank robber, or something like that. And there's only been a very few occasions where that wasn't the case. Like, for instance, I said, well, maybe, for instance, the Venetian masquerade balls. But then I thought, no, hang on, the Venetian masquerade balls, that is the masquerade balls that are held or used to be held every year in Venice. And they would stay in Italy.
Hold that thought. We're going to a break. Okay.
No.
We're back with Guineith. We're back with Guineith. I've got the Seekers. I am Australian.
Yep.
It's 4 minutes, 35 seconds. Would you like to hear it?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Let's see if this works. Well, Guineith, shouldn't that be your national anthem?
I was just going to mention that. before when you mentioned that. There's actually a lot of people in Australia who think that maybe should be the new national anthem because, I mean, my son and I have had this discussion a number of times about national anthems. I don't really like the Australian national anthem. I think that it's full of too much pride, too much hubris, not pride of a good kind, but, you know, it goes, you know, Australians all let us rejoice, for we are young and free. Well, no, we're not. You know, we're not young, we're not free. We're, you know, Australians as a nation have never broken free of their prisoner heritage, and they need to. You know, Australia is such a great country, and there's so much that Australians could be really, truly proud of, you know. Like, for instance, not a lot of people know, but the very first people who drove the Turks out of Jerusalem for the first time in about 800 years, they took back the city of Jerusalem from the Muslims. It wasn't Lawrence of Arabia that did it. It was a bunch of Aussies on Aussie bush horses, whaler horses, which were the native Australian cavalry horse, born and bred here in the Australian outback. And they are the ones who really kicked the Turks and the Muslims out of Jerusalem. That's one example, you know, of many, many examples. And just the heroism in battle and, you know, and all the rest of it. But the Australians that I see today, when I go out into town, they're weak jellyfish, and they need to stop. They need to remember who they are. They need to remember what a great nation they are, and they need to stand up for themselves and stop just letting these people walk all over them and tell them what to do, things that are going to be really genuinely harmful for them. Like, for instance, wearing these stupid masks that cause hypoxia. Hypoxia kills the brain cells. It makes you confused, and it makes you crazy, and it makes you do stuff that you're really, really going to regret. And it can also cause too much carbon dioxide, and it can also cause too much nitrogen. And if you've got too much nitrogen, then you get something called the Martini effect, which I just researched, you know, just an hour or two before coming on air. And my son just brought up this YouTube video on the Martini effect on his phone and said, "Hey, Mum, look at this." And I went, wow, I really needed to see that. You know, if you have too much nitrogen in your system, it's like that you've drunk 6 martinis in a row, you know, and then you go into convulsions and then you die. And I believe that if the people of Australia and America continue with this mask insanity, that you're actually going to see people dropping dead in the street. Australia is a really, really great nation. They hate being told what to do. And they need to remember that they hate being told what to do. They have to remember what an independent, strong, and resourceful people that they are. And they need to stand up for themselves and just say, no more, we're not doing it. We're not going with the Belt and Road Project with the Chinese. We're not going with all these stupid, insane little rules where when some guy wearing a uniform comes along, or a stupid costume comes along and says jump, then you say how high. Australians need to stop. They need to stop doing that. They need to say, listen, we're capable of thinking for ourselves. We, ordinary Australians, built this country. There was basically nothing here when we got here, and we built it, so we need to start defending it. And we need to stop being such a bunch of jellyfish, and we need to grow a spine. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Of course, yes, it does. And I was thinking as you were saying that, Guineith, about the parallels with the United States, the original 13 colonies, and Australians. So Australians were put there, banished from England, right, by the Crown, because the people, they wanted to dispose of them, but they didn't want to kill them. So they brought them to Australia in chains. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, there's an interesting backstory to that, and I'll tell you what it is. The only reason why England started sending people to Australia was because they couldn't send them to North America anymore, because the Americans rebelled and formed their own nation back in 1775 and 1776, and they weren't going to be told what to do anymore. America, when it was first established as the American colonies, the 13 colonies, were established as prison colonies, for, in the same way that Australia was, for the people that Britain wanted to get rid of. And they got to America and they found that it was actually a really rich land, and they chose to make a life for themselves. They chose not to be told what to do anymore by these people who hated them, who really wanted them dead, who expected them to die when they got put in the middle of nowhere in a hostile climate. But no, they didn't die. They made a new life, and they became a new nation, and that new nation was called America. And I think that it's time for Australians to stand up and have their America moment and to say, well, the Americans did it. They stopped being a prison colony. Now we are going to stop being a prison colony. We are not going to be told what to do. We're going to run our own lives here in this country. Does that make sense, Vincent?
I couldn't have said it as well as you said it, Guineith, because I was thinking about the people who arrived here were criminals, including our founding fathers. If you think about it, they protested against oppression, regulation, and taxation. They were sick of it. They were sick of it, and they got together and they said, that's it. That's it. And they built a nation. And the Australians, who were banished to Australia, built a nation. And I was wondering, Guineith, in the last 10 minutes as you were speaking and teaching, are you part of USA Prepares because of that rebellious spirit against being told what you will do? Because I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
here we have
yes.
two separate continents, North America and Australia. And we think the same way. Class, as many of you already know, USA Prepares has been delisted from Republic Broadcasting Network. And I have received a lot of emails regarding that particular topic. Why have we been delisted? Why have we been removed from Republic Broadcasting? And I've been thinking for days about this. I learned about it last week when one of our students, Gene in Kentucky, sent me an email and said that we're no longer on RBN. I didn't know about it. And we hadn't been since the 16th of this month. So I did a little bit of research, and sure enough, Gene was right. And I started getting more emails about this particular topic. And I know that there are many of our class who want to know what this is all about. And I've been agonizing with, should I discuss it or not? And I haven't come to a decision yet, but I'm really close. I might discuss it tomorrow. And I've received a number of emails, and I've been looking at these emails, and they are glowing. Absolutely. I mean, these emails that I've received are very kind. to us. Very positive. They give us great grades. I mean, if we were in school, we'd be A+ based on these emails. So if you'd like to weigh in, the email address is still up. Instructor@usaprepares.com. Instructor@usaprepares.com. And I may read some of these tomorrow. If I discuss it, it will be tomorrow, Thursday. Thursday will be just me. And the reason for this happening on Thursday, if I decide to do this, is because I don't want anyone else being cast with whatever I get cast with for responding to USA Prepares being removed from Republic Broadcasting Network. So I'm probably going to do it. So if you've got some comments, positive, negative, whatever you want to say, just send those to instructor@usaprepares.com. And I'll get them. Probably. I don't get all my emails, but hopefully I'll get some of those. And I may read them. Or parts of them. So if you don't want me to mention your name, or if you don't want me to mention parts of what you have to say, delineate that so I know what is available for discussion and what's not. And then tomorrow, if I do this, you may want to call in and tell me what you think about USA Prepares being removed from Republic Broadcasting. Now, we were the only cross-network broadcast, probably ever. We're the only broadcast that was on two competing networks. GCN is the big network. There's no question about it. We at GCN are number one. Republic Broadcasting, many feel, is number two. So we were on the number one and number two network. Never has that happened before, where a broadcast was on like CBS and ABC. Never happened. It doesn't happen. They're competitors. And I asked Ted Anderson, the owner of Genesis Communications Network, if that was okay with him. And it was okay with him. So we were rebroadcast in our the broadcast in its entirety, commercials and everything, on Republic Broadcasting Network. So we're no longer there. And I have some comments, my thoughts about that. But if I do this, it will probably be seen as sour grapes. I do not want that to happen. I do not want it to seem as sour grapes because it's not. As a matter of fact, I am perfectly okay with USA Prepares not being on Republic Broadcasting Network. I'm okay with USA Prepares not being on any affiliate that doesn't want us. I really am. Our mission is not to grow. Our mission is not to sell. Our mission is to teach. Period. That's it. That's our entire mission. We don't have any income. We don't have any sponsors. We don't have any advertisers. Our mission is to teach, and volunteers are the faculty. Nobody's paid. Nobody. That's who we are. So I may discuss that tomorrow. If you want to comment, instructor@usaprepares.com. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith Isaacs is with us. Guineith, I was thinking about some of the things that we said, some of the things that we forecasted regarding the corona panic and the eruptions of violence and the supply chain disruptions. We called it right, every bit of it. We called it right ahead of time, way ahead of everybody else. And we said that the fireworks in the United States used to celebrate the 4th of July. I don't think they're used to celebrate Independence Day. I think they're used to celebrate the day, number 4, in the month of July. At least that's what most people think they're for. So we forecast that those fireworks would be used by the villagers against the police because the police and the military were escalating. And we said to the president, don't do it. Do not escalate, because it will, if the feds escalate and if the police escalate, it will get worse. And it has. So what's being used is by the military, the feds and the police, rocket launchers, for tear gas, etc. And it's been escalating. All because of one guy, Mayor Jacob Frey, Minneapolis, Minnesota, because he was so greedy and he wanted to protect his murderous cops. He wanted to protect them. So because of that, violence has erupted. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Him. He did it. He's the guy. So in the history books, when you want to read about who was the guy that caused the final blow to destroy the United States of America, his picture should show up. Jacob Frey, mayor of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, what's next? What's the next level of escalation? Now, this is just anybody can see this. This is like plain as day. The villagers are using Molotov cocktails. Why are they doing that? Because that's what they have. They've got bottles. They've got flammable liquids. They've got bricks and rocks. And they've got pipes and whatever else they can find. And that's what they're using. And they're lashing out. They're lashing out against the big bad system, the evil that has been foisted upon us for decades. The overtaxation, the overbearing regulations, the inability to compete with the most favored trading partner, China. How did that happen? Well, our government did it to us. They put their hands around our necks, strangled us, and gave the Chinese a way to sell cheap, inferior substandard products at lower prices than we can make them for. Those are our alleged representatives who have done that. And the result of all of this erupted with the straw that broke the camel's back. George Floyd and Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis. So that's where the blame is, okay? It's on the politicians, but the straw that broke the camel's back was the murder and the protection of the murderers, the police, who murdered a man. Now, was the man a nice guy? Probably not. Was George Floyd a nice guy? Probably not. Not in his history. But he didn't deserve to be murdered. Okay, so what's next? Well, it's clear to me that in classrooms, ignorant teachers would use laser pointers. They'd say, "Looky over here, class," and they would point to the board with a laser pointer, which is insanity, because you can be blinded by a laser, even a laser pointer. They say all over them, don't look at this. So I believe that you should avoid being in protest, because stupid people are going to take these laser pointers, and they come in different colors, green and blue and red, and they're going to start pointing with them. And the police are going to go ballistic, because they know that they can be blinded by them. Now, the police may set up people to do this. I don't know. The next thing that I think is going to happen is those laser pointers are going to be used for other purposes, like drilling holes. You know how the police have this special tool and they go in parking lots and they just walk up to the sidewall of the tire and poof, they punch holes in the sidewall of a tire with this special tool. It doesn't just poke a hole like an awl would poke a hole or a nail would poke a hole. It actually cores the tire. It literally takes a section, a circular section of rubber out of the tire so you can't fix it. And it won't self-seal. It's a hole designed to destroy the sidewall of the tire. And you can't easily repair the sidewall of a tire. Once you get a hole in the sidewall of the tire, that's it. It's new tire time. And these cops who have done this, if they damage one tire on a car that has 4 tires, and just about every car I know has 4 tires, if they damage one and it's an all-wheel drive car, the owner has to buy 4 new tires so they're all the same tread depth left. So one tire costs 4, plus mounting and balancing. Minimum of $500 to over $1,000 for a truck. So here's what I envision happening next. The people saw this, but they don't have access to these special handheld police tools, designed to destroy tires. That's what they're designed for. They're made for the police. But the villagers have screw guns, cordless screw guns. And they can be used with drill bits, and they can be used with screwdriver bits, Phillips and Thompson. I can see it coming. It's probably already happened. That the villagers have gone out and they said, you know what? We don't have to burn the police cars. We'll just take this cordless screw gun with a small drill bit. Remember, like they did to the villagers' cars. I'm telling you, this is going to keep escalating and escalating and escalating. And they're going to drill holes with lasers and all kinds of things. And they're going to blind people. And it's going to be terrible. And then more shooting is going to start. And the president has done the dumbest thing possible. He sent in the federales. What was he thinking? He's going to tell the villagers what to do. He has no idea that the villagers outnumber the federales. About 300 to 1.
At least. In some places, it's 700 to 1.
My blood is... I'm talking about the national average. I did the calculation. It's real simple arithmetic. It's how many cops and how many Americans. And Guineith, it's happening all over. And the politicians, all right, let me say it this way. So around Washington, D.C., by the way, Washington, D.C. has the highest number of police per villager in the country, by far. So I've been on what's called the Beltway. It's like it was at the time, 25 years ago, 5 lanes going each direction. It's like rings around the nation's capital, or the nation's cesspool. And I've been stuck in traffic there. All of a sudden, everything comes to a grinding halt. 5 lanes wide, everybody stopped. And the visualization that I have in my mind is that some guy in a limousine, in the back of a limousine, he knocks on the glass partition, and he says to the driver, "Hey, what's going on? Why are you stopped?" And the driver says, "Senator, this is gridlock. It's a traffic jam. And maybe there's an accident. There's something going on. And there's nothing we can do. We're stuck here." And the senator says, "I'm important. Who are these people who are in my way? Who are they?" Now, I can't say that I've been in the back of that limousine because I haven't. But I can visualize that there's another class of people, the ones who tell us what to do. And they look down on us. They look down on those people on the Beltway with the ladders and the pickup trucks, the guys that fix the air conditioning systems, the guys that paint the buildings, the guys that do the masonry work, repair the roads, all that. And I believe they're looked down on. They shouldn't be, but I believe they are by the ruling class. So the ruling class looks down on us, the bottom 93%, with contempt. We're in their way. And when something goes wrong, more force. More force. This time it's not going to work so well because there are more guns than they realize. There's more ammunition than they realize. And people are getting desperate. People are losing their minds. Absolutely losing their minds. At Starbucks, there was a barista, a coffee maker or a coffee pourer, who said to a customer, I'm sorry, but there's a mask rule. It's the employee didn't make this up. The employee was just trying to comply with the rules of the road right now. And so what does this over 200-pound guy do? Breaks the jaw of the coffee pourer. We're losing our minds. It's ridiculous. The war is on. The Second American Revolution is on. The Second American Civil War is on. This is a combination of a civil war and a revolution rolled into one. And there's no getting out of it. It's impossible. The government, combined with the Federal Reserve, has printed us into monetary collapse. If you look at prices of real things, I'm not talking about Chinese junk. I'm talking about real American products. The prices have escalated. Many X. What's X? Well, the original price. Many X is many times the original price. So, when we come back, Guineith, I want to just talk about ammunition and the price of ammunition. When I tell you what has happened, you won't believe it. And if this doesn't curl the hair on the back of your neck, you're not paying attention. Guineith Isaacs is with us, and when I was a child back in the 1950s and the 1960s, anyone could go to a store, hardware store, and buy ammunition. So, for example, if you wanted to buy a box of 50 .22 long rifle cartridges, they would cost 50 cents for the box. 1 cent each. I decided to look up what the price is now. Well, it's hard to find them. So I went to, I typed in bulk ammo on a search engine. You ought to do it. Try it. Type in bulk, B-U-L-K, space A-M-M-O. And then go to the 22 section. See if you can find some 22s. And here's what they cost now. $10 a box for 50 rounds. 22s. So, if y'all remember, months ago, I was saying things like, got 22s? Got 22s? You know how much they were then? 6 months ago? About $2 a box. They've gone up 5x in 6 months. 22s are now $10 a box. They used to be 1 cent per round. Then they hit 2 cents per round. You could have gotten them for 4 cents per round 6 months ago when I kept saying got 22s. Now they're 20 cents a round. What I'm trying to tell you is it's here. The revolution is here. The Civil War is here. Guineith, any comments?
Okay. Getting rid of people's firearms won't stop them from hurting other people because, Gerald Celente, I think, says it best of all. He says when people have nothing left to lose, they lose it. and a person who doesn't have a firearm will grab anything that comes to hand and use it as a deadly weapon. And that could be, I don't know, a piece of string, a plastic bag, a roll of duct tape.
A potato?
A potato, yes. And, a bottle of, an empty bottle and a bit of your favorite automotive fuel, and it
could be as simple as
anything.
It could be as simple as a rag. It can be as simple as a rag. People on the street have, during these riots, they've stuffed a rag in the gas tank of a vehicle.
Yep.
One match later, boom.
That's right. That is right. Because, the really, really dangerous thing is a human mind intent on doing damage. And you can, even if you take every single last weapon away from a person and then you hack them off enough to where they really want to do some damage, they will do damage with their bare hands. They will kill people with their bare hands. If you take everything else away from them, then they will use their bare hands, they will use their own garments as a deadly weapon. So taking firearms away from people, when it comes down to the line, of people losing their patience for whatever reason, usually because their bellies are empty and they have no house anymore. And these power elites, they seem to think that people who are homeless and hungry are powerless, but actually they're the most dangerous people of all. And that's very, very easy to demonstrate, because all you have to do is to be a normal person and go and live in a food-deprived homeless camp. They are the most dangerous places on the face of the earth. Homeless people without any food. Because they can appear from nowhere, and they will do their damage, and they will disappear to nowhere.
We're not advocating. We're not advocating this. We're just telling you
anything.
We're just telling you this is
how it goes.
Right. This is easy for everybody to see. Chris, I'm not telling you anything that you haven't seen. And from what you've witnessed, the government allows you to protest what you feel is wrong. In some places. Some places you need a permit to protest. What you've seen is that the government doesn't mind protesting. It really doesn't. Because they know it doesn't do anything and they don't pay attention to the villagers. It's when the villagers say, this isn't working, that they get really frustrated. And they say, you know what? Why are we protesting these government buildings? Nobody lives there. And they decide to go to the mayor's house. Then that gets the government's attention. Whoa! You guys are protesting in front of a $7 million private home of the mayor. That gets their attention. And that's what's happened. I'm not telling people to do it. I'm telling you that it's already happened. We said it would happen. It did happen. And it's getting the attention. And the president is doing some really dangerous things by escalating, by sending troops in. And the cities are telling the president, get your troops out of here. We don't want them here. And the president is saying, we're going to take care of business. If you locals can't do it, we're going to take care of it. We got a bigger hammer. And they do. But the problem is, the villagers, when that happens, the villagers are going to go ballistic and they're going to go into guerrilla mode. Not into mass protest mode. They're going to go into guerrilla mode. Why do I say that? Because it's already happened. We used to line up and face off against the redcoats. I'm talking about the colonists. We'd face off with them. We'd line up and we'd say, this is nuts. Why do we line up and become targets and get shot? So what happened? The colonists decided to become guerrilla warriors. And they hid behind trees and they pick off the redcoats one at a time. They pick off the guy with the most decorations on the uniform. That's what they did. And that's what's going to happen again. You can see it. It's right in front of you. So the people who wear the costumes in your village, who are giving the locals a hard time, they're going to be remembered. Think about that. Think about that if you're one of them. You're going to be remembered. And later, when you least expect it, the guerrillas are going to come out. It's happened before. History repeats itself over and over again, and those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Any comments, Guineith?
Yeah, many years ago, I'm talking about during the 1960s, my husband was in the habit of taking holidays in Ireland, and one of his Irish friends told him something. My husband was a gangster. Most of his friends were gangsters. And he said, and Archie said, who's the most, who's the guy around here that you really need to look out for? And his friend told him, the guy that you really need to look out for is the guy who's driving the plow with the team of horses. He's the guy that you really need to look out for. And Archie said, what do you mean? And his friend said, he's carrying a revolver. And Archie went, oh, I see. And that was how it was back then, which I think is what you might be talking about, Vincent. And even if somebody had taken that revolver off him, it would not have stopped him because, he would have found other ways. But as it was, they found a good supply of revolvers back in the day. And I'm not saying anything that is not on the public record already, but that was what my husband was told back in the 1960s when he was going on his holidays to Ireland. And that's the truth of it. And I'll tell you what's going down in Melbourne. I'll tell the class, I've already told you, I'll tell the class what's going down in Melbourne. The police and the Australian Army are going to people who have positive coronavirus test results, and they're setting up camp outside their houses to make sure they don't leave home. That is not acceptable. That is definitely not acceptable. That is called a siege. And these people, I would not be surprised if some of them began to see the light and get rather upset about these people who are besieging their houses. And I don't know, maybe they'll just decide to play really, really loud music 24/7. That might be a good way to get rid of them, because that's a good old-fashioned Australian cure for getting rid of snakes out of the bottom of your garden, is to take your subwoofer out the back and play some of your favourite music at about 150 decibels for a number of hours. And you'll find that if you do that, you get rid of the snakes out of your garden. And you know something? That is just something that occurred to me that might happen. I'm not advocating that people do that, but I'm just saying that it's a really good way to get rid of snakes out of the bottom of your garden.
Well, Guineith, the corrupt state of Missouri has 2 mobile sound systems, and they are high amplitude drivers. They have like speakers, And these are so loud that if they come up to you with them, you will wet your pants. Literally. Uncontrollably.
Yep.
And that's what the Department of Transportation has here in the corrupt state of Missouri. So I'm pretty sure that Missouri is not the only corrupt state that has those things. I'm sure that the federal government's got them too. So there are all kinds of weapons. There are microwave weapons. There are sound weapons. There are biological weapons. There are radiological weapons. And then there are projectile type weapons. And then there are explosive type weapons.
I think people are going to get very creative. We need to keep saying this. We're not advocating anything. We're just saying what people might do, what people have done in the past in these sorts of situations, because you can't just keep pushing people and pushing people and pushing people, because sooner or later, people are going to lose it. And it's maybe not everybody that loses it, you know. Maybe there will be some people who just curl up in a corner and just cry themselves to the grave.
Guineith,
you know.
Guineith, let's say it this way. Class, I believe that if we had a contest, the USA Prepares class with instructors and students combined, and we went head to head with any other broadcast in general knowledge, we would clean their clocks. Okay. I'm talking about Rush Limbaugh. I'm talking about Sean Hannity, Michael Medved, Michael Weiner, also known as Michael Savage. Doesn't matter. Glenn Beck. It doesn't matter. I believe our class is brighter than any of the other broadcasts. I really believe that. And I believe our class is bright enough to know that we should not participate in any of these protests. We should not. We should not protest. Do not do this. And here's why. Because I'd hate to see you get hurt. Because there are a bunch of stupid people out there, the GDP as I refer to them, the generally dumb public. They're pulling statues down. They are throwing lighted, highly flammable containers of liquids that burst into flames. They are 360 degrees around the protesters. You can get burned, wounded, you can be shot by the police, you can be in a tear gas fog at a second's notice. You can be shot in the face by the police with a rocket launcher that shoots a tear gas rocket, and they do it with impunity because they're taught to do it, and that's their policy. Their policy is if they feel the slightest threat, they shoot first. Don't go to any protests. Don't go to any riots. Stay away because we don't want to see you get hurt. I'm not going to any. I've never said, hey, y'all, go to a protest. I think it's our right to protest, but I'm not going. Don't go, because if you go and if you have your cell phone, they know who you are. Number one. They have facial recognition if you don't have a cell phone, and they probably know who you are. And they can round you up one at a time later. Next week? No, probably later than that. The week after? No, probably later than that. And I can prove it to you. Because there was a gun show in the corrupt Commonwealth of Virginia a couple decades ago. And there were a lot of police there. I was there. I felt really uncomfortable. You know, normally they had one or two cops like at the door, checking rifles and pistols and shotguns and revolvers to make sure they were unloaded, you know, when you came in to sell them. Well, one day there's like 20 of them. And I said to our son, I don't really like this. I feel really uncomfortable here. This is wrong. And I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. Let's go. So we left. We didn't buy anything. We didn't buy a book. We didn't buy a magazine. We didn't buy ammunition. We didn't buy anything. We didn't buy a sword, a medal, a dagger, no World War II memorabilia, no Civil War memorabilia, nothing. We didn't even talk to some of the people we knew there who were, World War II veterans. It's just a great thing to do. I met Randy Weaver there. I talked to him for a half an hour, just the two of us. Well, my son too. I met Carlos Hathcock there. He was a Marine sniper, like #1. Talked to him for a half an hour. So it was a great experience for $4, right? Well, here's what happened. We saw the police in the parking lot writing down license plate numbers. A couple days later, in the Richmond City television news, people were complaining that the cops showed up at their houses and saying, "Where's that gun you bought, boy?"
Wow.
I'm telling you. Oh, yeah. I was there. It happened. Not to me. Class, that story that I just told you about the Richmond, Virginia gun show is a big gun show. And it happened many years ago, a couple decades ago. It made the Richmond City television networks. It made the Richmond print news. Then it made the national news. And then it went all the way to the halls of the U.S. Congress. Congress was outraged. Absolutely outraged at what happened. That they got caught. So if you think that you've got a congressperson on your side, you ought to really think hard about that. Because you can say to a congressperson, "You work for me." And if they say to you, "No, I don't work for you," they are correct. They don't work for you. They get paid by the federal government. That's who they work for. And in a real estate transaction, you find a realtor and you look for a property and you say, "I'd like to buy that property," and your realtor says, "Okay, we'll put an offer in," and you go to closing. Now, who does that realtor that showed you the property work for? You think that realtor works for you. That's not true. That realtor works for the seller. You're the buyer. Why? Because the money comes from the seller. The seller pays the commission to the realtor. You just pay the money to the seller. The seller then pays the realtor. That realtor that's your best buddy for that transaction doesn't work for you. Your congressperson doesn't work for you either. One last thing. So if you want to weigh in about your thoughts about USA Prepares being delisted from reruns on Republic Broadcasting Network, I'd love to hear your comments. I may read them. If you decide to do that, let me know what you think I can read on the air tomorrow and what you don't want me to read if I do the broadcast about that tomorrow. I may do it. So that would be instructor, INSTRUCTOR at USAPrepares.com. USAPREPARES.com. Gwyneth, any comments?
Okay. I would just like to, sort of back up everything that you just said about the protests. People shouldn't be going to protests. Okay, I'm not going to any protests. I'm not doing any in-person, activism of that kind, of demonstrating protests or anything like that. Because at the moment, you've got faction fighting faction, and they're all going to end up destroying each other. They're all paid off by one evil group or another that I can see. BLM, Antifa, the police, they're all paid off by people who basically want to dominate and control all of us and tell us all what to do. And I don't want to be told what to do by anyone. So my plan is to sit out here on my farm and watch the whole thing collapse in on itself as it inevitably must, and just focus on rebuilding or building up my little world out here to be an inheritance for my children after me, to be a good place for myself and my family to live, to be a supply of food, and to be a very positive environment. But if anybody comes to the gate thinking that they're going to take this place off me, they have got another thing coming. And if everybody focused on just maintaining their own estate and of seeing off hostile people who would seek to take that place off of them, then none of this would be possible for these globalists to do any of this. Not with the fraudulent property taxes, not with the police coming and acting like a bunch of thugs. If everybody said, driver's license, why should I need permission for you to travel down the road to the shops? Why should I need permission from you to, have this motor vehicle that I paid for with my own money? If everybody did that, then there's no way that they would even be able to enforce driver's licenses. But we've all bought into it. And because of that, they feel that they can enforce it. And around here, it's like $500 a year to register a motor vehicle. That's just disgusting. That's like, you're paying the value of a low-value vehicle once every few years just to keep that piece of aluminium plate on it to say that you've paid into their extortionate cartel. And I believe that the day's going to come when it's all going to collapse. It's all going to fall in on itself.
I agree. One final comment, class. Class, you are the rebuilders. You're are the start. You are the start of America. You are the start of America 2.0. Guineith, do you agree with that?
Yeah. And Australia 2.0 too.
That's correct. Yep. That's who you are, class.